Hello, my name is Mr. Bump in the Night, and I have always been interested in the dark and mysterious things that went bump in the night, and if you do as well, please consider giving that like and subscribe button a click. I will be uploading at least one story a week, and if you have any story suggestions please let me know down below. Thank you! I have an interest in the unknown. I used to be a skeptic of the strange things that went bump in the night, you know, the guy who had an explanation for everything. Until a Halloween weekend incident happened to me and two others back in 2003 near the Boundary Waters in Minnesota. I was 20 years old. My name is Jacob and this is my story. Me and two friends Daryl and Lucas grew up in rural Minnesota, raised as hunters and survivalists. Living in Minnesota, it was not uncommon for us to go hiking in deep woods. Track, kill and eat our food, camp out in the wilderness be it spring, summer, fall, or winter. That being said, in June of 2003 we made a plan to roughing it for 7 days, at the Boundary Waters, the weekend before Halloween weekend as a fun challenge for us to conquer the forested elements. October 2003, the day we arrive at the Boundary Waters, sometime in the afternoon, I want to say around 2 p.m, the weather was cold with a mixture of snow and rain, camping lots were almost bare. We purchased our permit and park our vehicle. Grab our packs, put on our ponchos, tighten up our boots, and head north. Our camping destination was going to be on the southwest side of Rush Lake, which was about a 9 to 10 mile hike. The ground was wet yet a bit crunchy, the air was cold, but felt so pure to inhale. As the sun started to set, the snow was getting a little heavier as the rain started to slow down. We were still a few miles away from our destination, due to our stops at certain points throughout the hike to take in the sights and air. What should have been a 3 to 4 hour hike, instead became 6 hours. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary the first day. We made it to our destination, set down our packs, and started setting up our campsite, 3 pup tents in a circle with a hole dug up in the middle, meant for our fire which held branches and mid-sized logs that seemed dry enough from our hike up. However, none of us believed we were going to get a fire going with what we had, but we tried anyways, with no success. We threw the packs that contained our food over a high tree branch, being held by a climber's rope about 10 feet away from us, and called it a night. I woke up around 2 in the morning having to pee. I unzipped the tent, and stick my head out to pitch black woods, only being able to see slight silhouettes of trees. I turn around to find my flashlight, and walk out about 12 feet from my tent. I hear a branch snap in the distance, not paying much attention to it as wildlife is everywhere around here. As I finish up I walk back to my tent, and as soon as I get inside and lay down, I begin to hear light breathing over the roof of my tent. Knowing I did not hear any unzipping of tents, or crunching of the snow and hard leaves, I know it was not my friends. I started to breathe into my sleeping bag as to try to sound as if I were not there. Within 2 minutes the breathing had stopped, but I did not hear anything walk away, so I lay there on guard clutching my rifle waiting. After about what felt like hours of laying there, and trying to convince myself of many different scenarios and possibilities, I took a risk, again clutching my rifle, and quickly unzipping my tent and let out a big yell to startle or scare away this thing, but nothing was there. My friends woke up and asking what was going on, and I told them I thought I heard something outside my tent, so I was just making sure. They understood and went back to sleep. I felt better not seeing anything, but in the back of my mind, there was still something about the situation bugging me, but I shrugged it off for now, and fell asleep. The next morning, I am the last one awake, and Daryl is already out fishing, while Lucas was prepping a fire. I started to help him out, and we finally got a fire burning. About an hour goes by and Daryl arrives back at camp, with some fish to eat for breakfast. While we are cleaning the fish, Daryl asks me about what I heard last night that made me jump out of my tent, and I explained how I heard a snap in the distance, and then breathing over my tent, and that I guess maybe I was just so tired at that moment. I didn't hear something run up to my tent, caused for something to do that. They had to have been hungry, and maybe looking at me as a meal. This was just one of my thoughts, that seemed logical for the record. After our fish breakfast we continued our hike north, about a mile to the Boundary Waters, for some relaxing fishing, and beer. Hours go by and we have caught ourselves some nice sized walleye and smallmouth bass and some crappie. We head back to make dinner with our catch, and about halfway to our campsite, we all hear what sounds like something big, crunching and snapping branches from a short distance as if it were following us. Lucas began slowly pulling his rifle from his shoulder, and aiming towards where we heard the sounds. We start walking toward our campsite, again with Lucas still holding his rifle on guard. When we finally make it back to our campsite, the three of us equip our rifles to our backs, and begin cleaning the fish, and talking out what it could have been out there stalking us. My guess was a bear, cause black bear are common in that area, but they are not the type to stalk humans, unless it just wanted our fish maybe. Within seconds of putting the fillets on the fire, we heard a loud scream come from the distance west of us. I grabbed my first aid kit, and the three of us ran as fast as we could toward that scream, thinking someone was hurt, only to find no one. We called out yelling for them that help us here, but no one responded. We went back to camp, and only to find all the fish we caught was gone. Our campsite was as we left it, only the food we caught was gone. It was strange, even the fish fillets we had on the fire was gone. Did someone just set a decoy to steal our food? It was late, and getting dark, so we couldn't go out for food now. We had to eat the jerky we brought with us and try again tomorrow. In the middle of the night, I wake up to Lucas calling mine and Daryl's name, asking if one of us is outside of his tent, messing with him. Daryl and I grab our rifles, and unzip our tent ready to ambush this unwelcomed visitor. I shine my flashlight at Lucas's tent and jump out holding my rifle pointed at every angle of his tent. Daryl is walking a small circle around our campsite, rifle in arms ready to shoot, only for us to again find nothing. Something is messing with us, and we have no idea of its intent, so we start the fire back up, and I volunteer to stay up and watch our camp while they slept till sunup, and for the rest of the night, nothing happened. We planned this trip, paid for this trip, and made the long trip here. We were not ready to leave, because of some losers that have nothing better to do than mess with strangers, so we decided we would head further northwest, and find a new campsite. As we packed everything up, we watched our surroundings. As we made on with our hike, it is very easy to tell if someone is around, due to the crunch of the snow and leaves. About 2 miles out we got more comfortable, and found a nice spot to set up that was along the east side of Boulder Bay. As we set up camp, we made a more triangular setting with our tents, with our opening towards the woods, and again with our hole in the middle for a fire. I took a nap since I stayed on guard overnight, and Daryl and Lucas went to fish for our lunch. A few hours go by and I wake up to the guys cooking the fish. We finally sit down and eat. While eating, we are still a bit on edge, as to what was going on and the eerie feeling it gave us even now, wondering if we no longer have to worry about what happened anymore, or if we should still be on guard. Cause really with the snow it wouldn't be that difficult to find us, but would someone really want to hike all that way just to be jerks? We left it alone, and went on with our adventure. Daryl went off to find shedded deer antlers, Lucas went off with his rifle, to find some small game for dinner, and I just stayed back to fish. Suddenly, I hear Lucas scream from the top of his lungs, and then his rifle discharged. I threw my fishing pole on the ground, and ran to my tent to grab my rifle and first aid kit, and ran towards Lucas's scream. Daryl is already there with Lucas, asking him what happened. What happened? Lucas, trying to catch his breath, continuously repeats the eyes. They were black. I began to ask in a slight panic, what eyes? Whose eyes? Lucas, with a little more breath, begins to tell us, whatever he's seen was warped, and twisted, and we need to leave. After everything that's been going on, we decided to do as he warned. As we turned around, I look off to my left, to see glinting eyes looking at us. I ready my rifle to fire should it attack, but by the time I get my rifle off my shoulder, the thing was gone. We ran to our campsite and started packing everything up, as fast as we could, quickly kicking dirt onto what was left of the bonfire, rifles at the ready. We start to head out on what is going to be a long hike back to the car. The first couple miles that took us back to Rush Lake were no problems. We sit down for a minute to take some bites of jerky, and drink some water. That's when we hear that same loud scream we heard the other day, which clicks, that thing is what lured us out there. So that means there has to be 2 of those things, right? At this point we are in a triangular position, rifles aiming in all directions, and what makes everything even worse, the sun is now beginning to go down. We take a quick look in the direction we are going to run in, make sure we are all ready, and all together we run as fast as we can. We can hear this thing running along with us, at a close distance, branches snapping, snow crunching, debris falling. It somehow gets in front of us, just barely out of sight, and lets out another long blood-curdling scream, which makes all three of us come to an immediate sliding stop. With all of our rifles pointed in the direction of the scream, we know if we leave this path, we risk getting lost in the wilderness, giving this thing an even bigger advantage than it does now, so we all agree we keep walking forward, ready to discharge our weapons if needed. I give a shout whoever you are, I am warning you, that we are armed, and will open fire, if you do not identify yourself now, this is your only warning, and we get no response. So we started walking forward some more. I could feel my palms starting to sweat, I could hear my heart pounding, and with every step we took forward, I could feel in the pit of my stomach, a sense of despair and dread, like, this was it, this is where I am going to die, this thing has us at his advantage, and suddenly the cold scream of death comes from what sounds like 6 feet from our faces, and we all three open fire. Before making another step, we all reload our rifle, then began to rush forward hoping to see this creature or creatures dead. But nothing was there. We chose not to stand around and question it, we began to run again. It takes 3 minutes of running, before we began to hear branches and the crunching of snow and leaves, running at us again from the right side of us, only something was slightly different. It wasn't getting ahead of us. Did we injure it? Or did it realize our weapons could hurt it? But if that is the case, why is it still chasing us? None of us want to stop running, but it can't be helped. We stop for a minute to drink some more water, and catch our breaths, but still not letting our guard down. Now from the left of us somehow, this thing lets off another blood-curdling scream, and launches dirt and rocks at us. I fire one shot in the air, hoping to scare it off. Then the three of us make a run for it. We can see the lodge we parked our car at right in front of us, just outside the woods, maybe 200 yards away. Every step I take it feels like this thing is reaching out at me, trying to grab me, but just barely missing me. We break through the woods, maybe 100 feet away from the car, none of us turning around for the fear of slowing down just enough for this thing to grab us. 20 feet from the car, we are in the lot. In the light we get to the car, I turn around as fast as I can, with my rifle in arms ready to open fire, and again nothing. We load up the car keeping our eyes on that clearing, making sure the last thing we put in the trunk is our rifles. We drive off and never return. The three of us remain friends to this day. Still, after almost 20 years, we cannot figure out what that thing was. It was not human, it was fast, and it was intelligent, and not like any wild animal I have ever encountered, or even read about. For anyone going to the Boundary Waters, be careful and stay safe. Oh, and thank you for listening to my story.